Welcome to Conversations with Masesi, where my guest and I talk about everything life, family, love, community, and everything in between. Inside St. Paul's hospital room under the gentle morning sun, a narrative of recovery started to unfold. A story to triumph over tragedy where the bend on the road was not the end, but a transformative chapter in the journey towards a brighter life. Joining me today is Mavis J. Bristow, the author of All the Way, a memoir that you can purchase online or even at Scott's Parable. That's where I found this copy. And today, Mavis, we're going to talk about the bend on the road. I read on, I think it's page 56. You were pregnant, and on April 20, Donald was just over 7 months old. Do you remember that day, and take us through the day?
Thinking back, it's hard to talk about
that
time, but it was a busy day. George was, it was in the spring, so in the spring they get ready for seeding.
Yes.
And George had a young fellow helping him, and they were picking rocks in the field. And he had told me that he would bring Rick in for supper that night. Mm-hmm. And so I had made a macaroni casserole and was waiting for him to come. But I was concerned because I had been spotting a bit that day. So I was lying on the Chesterfield and watching Donald, 7 months old.
Yes,
and
walking on furniture and all that.
Walking around the coffee table. And at 7 months, he was pretty good to be walking around the
that's
coffee
so early.
table.
Yeah.
But cute little fellow, anyway. But anyway, when George came and Rick came in for supper, we hustled around and got supper ready. And after they finished, I said to George, I said, I think maybe I need to phone the doctor because I'm kind of concerned. And when I phoned Dr. Heinmarsh, he told me to come into the hospital. So we got ready and got in the car. And at that time, there were no seat belts. And we put Donald in the front seat beside George.
Yes.
And I got in the back seat. And I kind of was lying down in the back seat of the car.
Because you were not feeling good. So
So we headed to Saskatoon. It was a nice day. The sun had been shining brightly all day. And we left, and as we left, a couple we knew well drove by, and they were on the way to a dance at the hall.
Yes.
And we drove by, and we went up Highway 19 till we got to 15.
To 15, yes.
And it started to snow,
Yes.
or started to rain, actually. It was raining.
It was freezing rain. I don't want us to give too much of that information because I want all our conversation families to go get the book.
Anyway, we got to Highway 11, and it was snowing hard. And the car slipped on the road, and George tried to straighten it out. And it was on a curve in the road, and we flipped over, and I was thrown, and I guess I was unconscious because I came to and I could hear Donald, and I tried to get to him, and I couldn't move. And so George came and he got out of the car. It had flipped over, and he came and he said, I've got someone that will take Donald to Saskatoon and someone else that will take you. And so he and this other man got me out of the car, and we went to Saskatoon, to St. Paul's Hospital.
And you get to St. Paul's. I'm reading from the book, page 59. The sun was bright Sunday morning when I awoke. I thank God for the beautiful sunshine. I prayed that I would be cheerful when my family came to visit. I was thinking of Mom at that moment, afraid the accident will be hard on her. I also thought of George and my sisters and brother. I didn't want George to blame himself for going into the ditch. When I read this, I could not believe that you woke up thankful. But knowing the kind of family you grew up in, obviously based on the book, I could imagine what was going on in your head at that time. And you asked George where George was. How caring, the love of your life, because in all that you wanted to find out that everybody's doing good, everybody's is okay, and George is okay. And that's one thing that really stood out for me when I was reading the book. I don't want us to touch too much on the book, obviously, especially that day and what happens. But obviously our viewers can see that you are on a chair right now. And I want our viewers to know that you being on the chair of your, that journey. Talk to us about the rehabilitation and how you got to go through all the hurdles to be the resilient person that you are and be an advocate for accessibility.
Well, I was on a striker frame for 6 weeks, actually, lying flat on my back. And they would turn me over, and every 2 hours they'd turn me over. And there was a dear nurse in St. Paul's Hospital that when she would come on nights, she'd get down on the floor when I was flipped onto my stomach, and she would feed me ice cream. Dear nurse. But then when I left St. Paul's Hospital after that 6 weeks, that was a scary time. I didn't know what was ahead of me. And I got to University Hospital, and the first thing I can remember, I can remember being on the floor on the striker frame, and then they would transfer me to a bed. And the head nurse was very nice, came in, and she said, "Oh, it will be fine." And they slid me over onto a bed and soon had me kind of sitting up, and that was the first time in 6 weeks.
Wow.
But then when I started rehabilitation, they put me on what you call a tilt board, and they wanted to get me upright.
Yes.
And they said, "Let us know if you're feeling dizzy." And I wanted to be upright, so I didn't say anything. And the next thing I knew, I had passed out.
That's the part that I'm laughing when I read the book. I go and like, what did she do?
Anyway, then the rehabilitation, it was a challenge for me.
Yeah.
The competitive spirit that I had when I was on the ball diamond was there in the rehabilitation gym, and I wanted to do well. And there was another fellow that he was my competition.
Yeah.
And he was learning, was hurt about the same area I was, T10, right at the waist.
Yeah.
And we would have to sit on these big mats. They were up off the floor on the table, and we would get on these mats, and they would bring a jug of ice, and they'd wrap the towels in ice, and they'd put them around us so that we didn't feel the pain.
The pain, yeah.
And they iced us with real ice, not ice packs, real ice. Wow. And but then they would give us a ball, and we would throw the ball back and forth, and we would be sitting on the mat, and it was to get our balance. So we threw the ball back and forth, and I tried my best to make him fall over, and he tried his best to make me fall over. And it started out with maybe a soccer ball, but then it got to be a medicine ball. It was big and heavy, and so you would throw it as hard as you could to see if you could keep your balance. And
Yes.
that was, and I enjoyed even showing George when he would come up.
Yes.
enjoyed showing him that I could do this. And Mom and my sisters too, I showed them, what I had learned. And you slid onto the mats and then...
Wow. Your rehabilitation journey was very interesting. And reading it, let us talk about when you now got home and you have children that are in sports and you go to all these places, you see things that are wrong. What were those and how did you correct that because you started writing letters?
When I first got home, it was challenging because I looked up and the cupboards were so high and the sink was on my side.
Yes.
I had to back in and work at the sink, and so it was challenging. Mm-hmm. George rolled me up the ramp, and I had Donald on my lap, and I think he was having a hard time with it too because he said he was going to leave and go get the mail, and so he left me there, and I got mad. I thought, well, I'm going to get things going here, and I put Donald in his crib, and I started to make supper, and I made supper, and that was the beginning.
Yes.
And then, people came to visit. Lots of people came to visit, and I didn't want them feeling sorry for me. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the same person I was before. Yes. I wanted to be the same person.
For those that want to know more about all the things that Mavis has done and how she made sure that accessibility is something that we all enjoy, and for those that are in the chair, please go purchase the book and read all about it here. But for today, we're going to close this segment. I think I have the part I want to read to our viewers, the last part. I believe that over the years, as I have grown in my faith, I have learned to have a greater love and compassion for people. And I have learned how to listen to others. I believe that everyone has a story. Everyone has something in their lives that has shaped who they are and how they live their lives. That's a wrap for today. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all our social media platforms to keep the conversations going. Thank you for joining us on Conversations. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you and yours. Shalom.